This man had governed one of Britain's top sports for over 2 decades. He had attracted millions in sponsorship and had once enjoyed the respect of every player in the game. But by 1993, times were changing.
He had done a wonderful job. It was time to go, but he wouldn't go.
He's a bit of a vindictive man. And I know, mate, because nobody knows him better than me.
Develop something for 20 years and then just give it away like that. And I could see my officials allowing me to do that. Oh, dear me. Oh, just give away and just give it to them, yeah.
This is the story of how Ollie Croft clung to power, and of how the game he loved descended into one of the most poisonous civil wars in the history of British sport. Only a few years earlier, it had all been going so well for darts. The game had created some of the most unlikely superstars of the modern era. And it was the perfect TV sport, in some minds even better suited to the small screen than football.
All these 11 men chasing around, that's fine, if you're a fanatic man. But this is the classic confrontation. This is the guy with the spear against the guy with the sword, and who's better? Someone has to be better.
Bullseye to go out in style and take the open. Yes! Yay! That's a right goal!
Yes! It's there!
Yes! Jackie Wilson! They are both great. The emotion comes up.
Tournaments had sprung up in Sweden, Germany, the United States and Australia. Top players were throwing their darts in every corner of the world.
Eric Bristow! He's come good. He likes the odd pint and the odd bag. He's the star.
But all this was only possible because 20 years earlier, a young Ollie Croft had noticed something extraordinary happening in his local pub in Muswell Hill.
At 9 o'clock, everyone in the pub stopped talking. They all come round the dartboard, watch. I thought, well, all of a sudden, I thought, well, there's something in this. Everyone in the pub come round and watch a dart match.
From that moment on, Ollie and his wife Lorna dedicated their lives to turning a pub game into a major amateur sport through the British Darts Organisation. Then, in the late 1970s, they chanced across a teenage phenomenon who would change the entire destiny of the game. Eric Bristow.
Sometimes a lovely-looking girl comes into a room and you see the gentlemen turn their heads, you know. It was similar to Eric. I mean, if you'd know Eric was in the place.
We just got on very well. They was like a mum and dad to me. I was around there all the time. You know what I mean? They was good friends of mine.
He was a natural, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was just a natural good dart player. He was very arrogant. We loved him, we loved him, but we did there's certain things we didn't like what he did, you know.
But that's life.
That's life.
I suppose I was a bit of a character, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, I just said what I thought. I thought I was going to win it, so I told everybody. So I suppose I was a bit outspoken, but didn't tell no lies, did I? I just said what I felt.
Eric was a TV phenomenon. By the mid-1980s, up to 10 million viewers were tuning in to watch his top matches. The game's popularity soared.
It seemed to grow every year.
And there were some lovely friends in the Beeb, weren't there?
Well, that's right, yeah.
ITV and,
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
we sort of...
Very exciting times.
From his headquarters in Muswell Hill, Ollie was now running a multi-million-pound sport. Darts fever gripped the nation. Manufacturers couldn't produce boards fast enough. And sponsors were queuing up to pour money into the game. Darts players turned professional, earned big money, and were starting to enjoy living like stars.
Well, I didn't believe I'm coming back again, see? I'm only here once, and I'll have a good time. Whether I've done right or wrong, we'll find out later on in life, I suppose, I don't know.
But at the very moment the sport of darts was toasting its success, it was also unwittingly sowing the seeds of its own destruction.
How many pints would you have during a fairly tense game?
Well, depends. 5 or 6 pints or over.
I mean, even when you're on the television?
Yeah.
How can you see the board?
It's a funny old game.
It's a funny old game.
Suddenly, the press was full of lurid tales about darts players' drinking habits. It all seemed so unfair.
You can't play darts and be drunk. Or if you go to the top and drink, and you cannot play darts properly.
I mean, let's face it, the press will pick on anything anyway.
Yeah. Okay, then, if people do drink a lot of beer, maybe some people do get beer bellies, some people don't. But you'll find, as far as the dart players are concerned, they do eat a lot, because they've got to eat. They take a lot out of themselves, especially in competitive darts. They need to have a meal and have a drink after, the same as what you would do if you're playing rugby.
Out of the way! Come on, pull! Pull!
With the media on the attack, some players, like Jockey Wilson, made efforts to improve the image of the game.
Another 6, 9 months I could probably got rid of my pot belly. But that's bloody knackered me.
But it was too late.
Breathe in as you go.
Broadcasters were threatening to take the game off the screen. As the crisis deepened, Ollie received an offer of help from a top PR guru who shared his passion for darts. Marcus Robertson thought he could bring journalists back on side.
We felt very strongly that the game needed direction on its image, and we were very, very keen to do that for Ollie.
But the Surrey-based PR man, with his talk of image and direction, didn't impress Ollie and Lorna.
When we went and presented, they were extremely disinterested and almost hostile to it, and I think felt that we were looking to take over the game in some way, which was a long, long way from the truth.
Marcus, I would...
It's not respected, no.
No, I wouldn't, it would get on people's nerves a lot.
As far as Ollie and Lorna were concerned, Marcus was just the kind of person darts didn't need.
He was a different class of person to us. The dart people are very down-to-earth people, aren't they, Ollie?
Yeah.
They need down-to-earth people to deal with. Are you with me?
Ollie was always very, very suspicious of anything that would possibly mean losing a little bit of control over the entire product.
Ollie was sure he could handle the media without Marcus. But he and Lorna were about to meet one of the cruelest attacks that had ever been launched upon any sport.
Game on. So it's Fat Belly to go first. Aye, it's a good start. Double vodka. Single pint. Another double vodka.
Clearly it was a clever sketch, but it was depressing because one knew that it would just reinforce all the prejudices that people had about the game.
And he's missed the tear ball altogether. He's missed the tear ball.
110 milligrams. That's just 110. What an unfortunate miss. Still 2 triple Bacardis.
It was not something that you could sort of sweep under the carpet. and say, well, we'll soon get rid of this. This is going to go away.
He's going for a triple Scotch. That'll help. That'll keep him in the game. Oh, would you believe it? It went in, but it's come out again. It's come out again.
Every walk of life, there's large and small people. Why should it be, because there's large and small people in the darts fraternity, why should it be different to the other walks of life?
But apparently it was. By 1988, darts was out of fashion. Broadcasters decided they wanted to wash their hands of 5 pints a night superstars. The BBC cut everything except one tournament a year, the Embassy Championship, and ITV axed its entire darts coverage.
All of a sudden they said, right, we're not going to run it no more. Why? You know what I mean? Who comes up with these bright ideas? And you've got a good programme that does very well on TV. Why do they just cut it like that? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, some people don't like the game, and that's it.
The word come back that the people that are watching it weren't the right people that are watching it, so I don't know who the right and the wrong people are, I don't know.
For players now dependent on the game for their livelihoods, this was a disaster. The long, wild dance of darts was over. Their despair was disappointing to Ollie, but for him the game did not live or die by television. He was still running 800 amateur tournaments a year in all kinds of places.
As far as the British Darts Organisation was concerned, I mean, we continued with running events, with weekend events with Pontins and Haven and Butlins and, you know, so, I mean, we were still very, very busy. We were still promoting darts in a big way.
For Ollie, the soul of the game lay not so much with the stars, but with his organisation's 30,000 amateur members. They were like a family to him.
Darts is full of so many nice people, though.
Yeah, they are.
You get, they really appreciate it. It's surprising really when you're at a tournament and, oh, fantastic, a lovely time. We lost the first round, but I've had a lovely time, you know.
Being part of a family, however, wasn't good enough for the top professionals.
Mike Gregory.
With no sign of a TV revival, they were scratching out a living in pub competitions.
Oh, it was terrible at the time. You didn't know where you was coming or going, whether the next penny was going to come from, whether you're in tournaments, out tournaments.
By 1993, Mike Gregory and the other professionals had spent 5 years in the shadows. Ollie, they decided, had not done enough to get darts back on the box.
Top 32 players in the world sat around a table and we said to Ollie Croft, can you guarantee us more than one tournament a year on TV? And he said no. We said, okay, would you mind if we run our own tournaments on TV? Because not only just the players managers, the dart manufacturers, everybody who do with darts was getting a bit worried. So that's who we was representing. And they said, yes, we do mind if you run your own tournaments on TV.
It's like your children, you know, they say, well, Dad, can I have an ice cream? You say no.
Ollie was adamant. The British Darts Organisation was not going to hand over control of tournaments just to keep a few players in pocket.
We don't owe anyone a living. We don't actually employ dart players and owe them a living.
For years, everyone who wanted to play competitive darts had always done exactly as Ollie told them. But now the top professionals had had enough of Ollie. They decided they had to set up their own breakaway organisation. And they found just the right people to help them. Spurned PR man Marcus Robertson would handle the media, and players agent Tommy Cox would win back those TV contracts that Ollie had lost.
Ollie's ability, thinking, and everything else with the game had become stale. He would not bring in any marketing people, he would not bring in any specialised television people, he would not bring in any PR. He thought that PR was a total waste of money. He didn't try to do anything, nor did he think that he had to. He didn't think that he had to justify himself to us in any shape or form. He does treat the sport as his own crown jewels and his family's own crown jewels, and that's the problem.
The stage was now set for a major confrontation. And Tommy chose Ollie's 1993 Embassy Tournament, the year's only televised competition, to launch a challenge to Ollie's stranglehold on the game.
We were looking to show the BBC in particular, and television in general, that there was another organisation there which had the support of most of the professionals, the top professionals, and this was the only showcase we had.
Tommy's top players arrived at the tournament, their hearts emblazoned on their sleeves. Their new organisation, the WDC, or World Darts Council, needed to get noticed. And if they stole the British darts organisation's limelight, so much the better.
We were very optimistic. And every single previous world champion would be wearing a WDC badge rather than a BDO badge.
Didn't think they'd have that cheek to do it. Honestly, didn't think they'd have that cheek to do it.
It was a kind of confrontation, it was a kind of challenge to the authority. And Ollie had no choice. Ollie had no choice.
The event that we're talking about now, I mean, that has been going for 18 years, and there's been a BDO promoted event since day one.
And he just flatly said, "It's advertising, you're not wearing them." I turned on my heel, I said, "You will never ever do this again to us, Ollie, never again," and walked out.
Ollie had won the first leg. The WDC would get no television publicity at all, and the debadged players were seething.
Eric turned to fury because he knew what exactly was happening, and he knew that they were laughing up the sleeves at us.
You can't tell Ollie anything, mate. He wants to bat the ball and everything. It's his. Darts is his game. You're just an individual. Don't worry about you. You could drop down dead tomorrow. That's the way I look at it. Darts will carry on. Us 32 players, we're just dart players. Don't worry about you. Sod you. That was his attitude. Sad, isn't it?
There's no doubt about it. They brought it onto themselves completely. No doubt about it at all.
Ollie thought he had seen off the WDC. In fact, he had fueled their resentment. The humiliated players were now ready to take the dispute much further. To them, it wasn't just about badges. It was about the destiny of darts. Marcus's PR machine now struck back with a press conference at the Rose and Thistle in Frimley. There, the top players held a gun to Ollie's head. Unless he agreed to recognize their new organization, they would never play at his Embassy Tournament again.
You come to a crossroads in life, and you've got to take left or right, haven't you? And it had to be done because it wasn't like difficult for. I suppose it was difficult for me personally, wise, because I was very friendly with them. But I mean, it was for the good of the game that I love, and that's more important than just one individual, isn't it?
Oh, big shot.
Yeah, very hurtful.
Very hurtful.
it was so unjust and so unfair. We was close friends to a lot of them, you know.
We travelled the world with a lot of the players.
Yeah, they could do that to us.
We've lived in the same hotel, the same in the venue, day after day, all over the world, and all of a sudden they've.
And I thought, well, Ollie's
gone.
given his life to them.
If they were heartbroken, then, you know, I can only suggest that they were being very naive if they thought they could just throw things one way and expect nothing to come back.
There was no stopping the rebel players now. Tommy had struck a deal to produce their own separate tournament for a local TV company. Top car manufacturer Lada agreed to sponsor it, and players were back on screen, if only in East Anglia.
It was good because we all stuck together and we all done things we would never have done, which like officials would have done. But you got dart players doing it and making sure it was done right.
I won 2 events out of 4. They were quite good. I really enjoyed them actually. I wouldn't give them titles away if anybody asked me, even though it's Lada. You know what I mean? What they say about Lada is just not true, by the way.
We had a great sense of achievement when it was finished, and we proved beyond doubt that we could put a tournament on.
Tommy thought he had Ollie over a barrel. His players were still threatening to boycott the next Embassy Championship. Surely Ollie would want to do a deal.
Remember that we had every world champion from 1973 to the present standing there foursquare with us, so that it seemed inconceivable that the tournament could go out without these players being in it.
Sure enough, Tommy and his PR man Marcus were invited to meet 100 delegates of Ollie's British Darts organisation. They decided to take the opportunity to argue that the 2 organisations should try to work together in a friendly way.
We were ushered through the crowd to complete silence at that time. And it was quite a big room and possibly 100 and odd people in there.
They looked confident that they had a presentation that would be at least considered.
I went in there with a lot of optimism and felt that our case, if you like, was very cogent. There was plenty of good in it for them, for the game.
As the meeting began, it seemed that Ollie was taking a back seat.
Very low profile during the meeting. Probably because he needed both hands free to pull the strings.
As soon as Tommy rose to speak, the real reason why he and Marcus had been invited became clear.
We were catcalled throughout.
Being accused of being liars.
The word scum was used.
There was some obscene language towards us.
You had the baying mob in full cry.
You get that in the House of Parliament. I mean, that's nothing new. If they don't like what they've heard, and we had a meeting last weekend, and if our delegates don't like what they hear, there's a rumble goes through the crowd. That's straightforward.
It became a witch hunt. It became a kangaroo court.
It felt like you were talking to 80 people who would quite happily have strung you up.
They knew then, I believe, that they were just brought there as being lambs to the slaughter. And it was never going to work. Never.
That meeting was a vehicle the BDO used to ostracise the WDC and its players.
I mean, I don't know what he's on about. I mean...
I just saw a pig fly past the window. Ollie's fingerprints are all over everything that the BDO does. Nobody does anything without Ollie's consent.
A man's an idiot if he believes that, and everyone else is it. If anyone else believes it, well, God bless them.
Yeah, they left, and the meeting sort of continued, but very, very much on a vein that was in their legs.
The delegates voted to ban Tommy and his star players from every darts competition in Britain. the most famous names in the history of the game were now outcasts.
Even now, when I'm thinking about it, my stomach churns, because it was stomach churning. The whole thing, the word ban became the most used word in the darts dictionary. It was an awful, awful period. I hope never to go through anything like that again in my lifetime.
They were absolutely, totally ostracised. Long-standing friendships over years and years and years were strained. Dart-playing partnerships in pairs that had been going for years and years were forced to be broken up. Even in the minor little insignificant £100 competitions in a pub somewhere, they couldn't. And it must have been very, very difficult for the resolve of those players.
Apart from the were now cut adrift.
Well, that was, we all said we was going to stick together, and that was it. And then Ollie started his game plan, didn't he? And all he was going to do is try and pick us off at one at a time. That's the way he thinks. That's the nastiness in his head. You know what I mean? We knew what they was going to do, but we just didn't think anyone was going to, you know, anyone was going to get suckered into it.
As the months passed, the ban put more and more pressure on the players' commitment to each other. Rumours of possible legal action made some of them especially nervous.
There was 100% solidarity amongst the players throughout the whole of the period of the dispute, with the notable exception of Mike Gregory.
I just decided, no, I think I'd better go back. Well, not just me and the wife at the time. And this is what we did. We made a team decision.
He sat amongst us, broke bread, as they say, with us, had a pint with us, knowing that what he was about to do.
I mean, it didn't concern anybody else what I was going to do. Then when they had to be told, they were told.
I wouldn't mind if he just said to me, Eric, I'm going to go back to the BDO. They've offered me a good deal. I want to look after my wife and kids. I wouldn't have told the other boys. I said, okay, Michael. Shook his hand. I said, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, and I still would have been friends with him, but he didn't do that. So I don't talk to him no more. But he should have told me. You don't share a room with somebody for 2 years and do that.
Oh, very pleased. I mean, he's one of them players that have been around with us for quite a few years. Nice bloke.
By the time of Mike Gregory's defection, Tommy already had a new and potentially more devastating crisis on his hands. The darting nations of the world had gathered at the Las Vegas tournament for a World Federation meeting, and a terrible thought had occurred to Tommy. Just suppose Ollie Croft were to use his influence to extend the ban on players across the entire face of the earth. In a fit of desperate anxiety, Tommy booked his flight to Vegas.
I think maybe at that time, Ollie did think that he would prevent the players from going to the Swedish Open, to the German Open, to the Belgian Open, to the Australian Open, and to the North American and Canadian Opens as well, and a whole host of others.
Tommy's worst fears were realized. As he lobbied the delegates, he learnt that a global ban was indeed on the agenda. The World Darts Federation was gathering the very next day, and the 5 most powerful darts chiefs on earth would decide the fate of Tommy and his new organization.
I was pretty desperate. I talked till I was blue in the face to people, outside lobbying and tried very, very hard to gain admittance.
But there was one factor which even the passionately committed Tommy could not negotiate out of the equation.
Tommy is a champion sometimes of hopeless causes. The General Secretary of the World Darts Federation is Ollie Croft. And he is as powerful, if not more so, on the World Darts Federation than he is on the British Darts Organisation. Do you honestly think that the World Darts Federation containing Ollie Croft as the General Secretary is going to turn round to England containing Ollie Croft as the General Secretary and say, Ollie, you made a mistake? Never. Never. Never happened.
If he couldn't get into the meeting to stop the ban, the choices for Tommy would be stark. He could concede all to Ollie, or he could unleash a force that would sentence the game he loved to years in the doldrums. Litigation. At this crucial moment, on the horns of an agonizing dilemma, there appeared to Tommy a vision which would guide his next move and the future of the entire sport.
Lorna just appeared like a bat out of hell, as they say, and she was livid. You could see in her face, she was livid.
I went up and I asked him what he was doing there. I said, you're not wanted by people. Why are you here? Just leave us alone. It was words like that, as short and sharp as that. Loud, with...
She actually said, what the fucking hell are you scumbags doing here?
I would never have dreamt of swearing at that stage, because I would have been lowering myself to their standard.
Right. she would never swear. Okay, well, she says that, it must be right then.
And I think I did cry after, you know, because I'd let off steam, yeah. It was a shock that I could do it, but I did it. And that's how much I must have felt.
And that was as near as we got to addressing the meeting. With regard to the court case, Vegas was the last stop, because then it made it inevitable, because not only were we having problems in the UK, we were now assured of problems all over the world, and that clearly had to be fought whatever the cost.
There now began one of the most protracted legal battles in the history of British sport. Hundreds of thousands of pounds that the game could ill afford were lavished on a case that would leave darts paralysed for years.
If I feel sorry for anybody, I feel sorry for those young players that would have come through. They would have challenged. They would have been the Bristows of the 90s, and they would have gone to these old fogey dart players who've been hanging around too long and said, hey, I can beat you. I'm going to beat you. Just exactly the same as Eric did. They were always denied that. And they can never get that back.
And as the lawyers locked horns, the world's top stars looked on and watched their best years drain away.
Jockey is living 30 yards from where he originally started out, on the same estate in Kirkcaldy, in Fife. He's never thrown a dart for 3 years, certainly. He's still a world-renowned face, as you can imagine, but I have to say he's never been out of the house, and he's never been off his housing scheme, as he calls it up there. He's never been off there in 2 years.
Even the game's undisputed superstar didn't escape unscathed.
He got dartitis, didn't he?
Dartitis,
He got
yeah,
dartitis
that was a few years
that was
after.
back in. He'd been at the top then for several years, and then he sent for some unknown reason he got his dartitis.
There's something in there, isn't it? It's your brain, isn't it? And everybody says to you, just let them go. That's what they say to you. You go like that, you go, and you just won't go. And everybody said, all your mates say, just let it go. I said, well, what the bloody hell do you think I'm trying to do? You think I want to stand here all day with this in my head, or what? Something to do with the brain cells, mate. The grey matter. Yeah, maybe that was stress, eh? I don't know.
After 3 years had depleted the finances of both sides to rock bottom and left the reputation of the game in tatters, lawyers advised the two sides to settle. Tommy agreed not to call his organisation a world body, and Ollie lifted the ban on players.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think either side ever construed it as being a victory. And if they had done so, it would have been a very, very hollow victory indeed.
Tommy's Professional Darts Council now stages Sky TV's coverage. And Eric Bristow has recovered from dartitis. The game still echoes with suspicion and mistrust.
There are still a lot of deep, deep wounds there, which I felt personally.
Through bloody-mindedness, or whatever you like to call it, they've cost the darts in general, a lot of money.
Until such time as Ollie moves aside or moves on altogether, there will never be complete harmony, because he will always have that feeling that darts belongs to him.
In a way, you feel it's your baby, you know. You know, you sort of been there for so long and all that. But the day I can't do it, then obviously I'll throw the towel in. But at the moment, I feel as though I've got a lot to offer.